At a small branch of the company, a newly arrived black employee quietly works while observing everything around her. One domineering presence catches her attention: the sales manager. He doesn't just steal food, force others to pay for his meals. He intimidates and berates staff without consequence. The tension simmers until it finally erupts when he boldly uses her laptop without permission and spills coffee on it. Even as she speaks up, he fires her on the spot. What he doesn't know is that the woman he just kicked out isn't just any employee. She's the CEO of the entire company, and his actions are about to cost him everything. It was a gray, chilled Monday morning when Angela Monroe stepped out of the modest black sedan and into the aging, two-story building that housed Branch 7 of Ellis & Grace, a far cry from the company's sleek downtown headquarters. Rain clung lightly to the air, as if hesitant to fall, and the wind carried that quiet stillness unique to early hours before an office truly wakes. Angela, 42, tall and composed, with skin like deep bronze and eyes sharp as cut glass, walked briskly through the front doors, wearing a tailored but simple navy butte pantsuit. Her hair, coiled neatly at the nape of her neck, didn't shift even as the wind caught her. She moved with the quiet confidence of someone long accustomed to command. But this morning she carried no entourage, no briefcase embossed with a title, just a slim laptop bag, and a badge clipped plainly to her jacket. Angela M. Marketing Support. Weeks earlier, her office at headquarters had received troubling, anonymous reports from Branch 7 concerning things that wouldn't show up in profit margins or performance charts. Words like hostile and entitled and unsafe had appeared repeatedly in cultural audit responses from employees who had nothing to gain from speaking up and everything to lose. One particularly short but chilling note had stuck with her. He treats us like his property. He takes, insults, mocks, and no one dares stop him, because we know what happens when you do. The formal HR assessments were, as always, clean. No official complaints, no smoking gun. But Angela knew the look of rot when it was buried under a fresh coat of paint. She hadn't clawed her way to the top to become the kind of leader who ignored what she didn't want to see. Down herself, quietly. No press releases, no corporate memos. Just her, in a disguise made of humility and observation, ready to see the truth through unfiltered eyes. Inside, the office felt uneasy. Beige walls, buzzing overhead lights, gray cubicles with cluttered corners. It was busy, but not lively. Conversations were hushed, no laughter, just the mechanical clatter of keyboards and the occasional rustle of paper. Angela was led to a small workstation in the rear corner, a desk with an old plastic chair, mismatched organizers, and a dusty phone that hadn't rung in months. She thanked the receptionist, took her seat, and began powering up her laptop. Within minutes, she could feel the rhythm of the place, the way people walked quickly, eyes low, always listening for something they didn't want to hear. There was no collaboration, no welcome, just silence and glances, a culture of caution. And then, like a thunderclap in a chapel, he arrived. Harold Beck. The name had been mentioned subtly in the feedback. Never accused directly, but always there, hovering at the edges of sentences like a shadow you can't shake. Mid-50s, white, slightly overweight, with a receding hairline and a bloated sense of ownership over the space around him. His shirt was too tight around the belly, his voice was too loud for the room, and his smirk was the kind that came from years of getting away with things that would have sunk lesser men. Angela saw it immediately. The shift in posture when he passed, the way eyes darted down, spine straightened, fear, fatigue, and forced politeness. That was the real dress code here. By mid-morning, she'd already seen him take food from a younger woman's desk without asking. It had been a neatly wrapped sandwich, labeled clearly with the employee's name. Harold had unwrapped it, sniffed it, and taken a bite before muttering, "You weren't eating it fast enough." The woman had chuckled nervously, but the edge in her eyes said it wasn't the first time. At 10:45 he walked by Angela's desk, gave her a once-over, and without invitation reached down and unplugged her phone charger. Borrowing this, Mine vanished again, he said, already walking away. She didn't protest. Not yet. Angela logged the interaction silently, like she always did. She wasn't here to storm in with accusations. She was here to see the truth as it lived, in how people were treated when they had no power, and more importantly, how those with power believed they were untouchable. By the time noon approached, she knew she had seen enough to confirm the reports were true, but still, she waited. Because exposing the truth was only half the equation. The other half would require something Harold Beck had never expected. Consequences. And those would come. But not today. Not yet. By early afternoon, the day had settled into that dull rhythm familiar to anyone who's ever spent time in a place ruled by unchecked arrogance. Conversations hushed mid-sentence when certain footsteps approached, laughter swallowed before it drew too much attention, shoulders tensed in preparation for the next unpredictable intrusion. Angela, still seated in her back corner desk like a ghost with eyes wide open, kept her posture steady, her demeanor calm, her focus unshaken. She had already witnessed enough to confirm what the reports had warned, but something in her, a principle too deeply rooted to ignore, refused to leave without facing the rot head-on. So she waited, and the moment, as always, arrived without delay. It started with lunch. As the clock struck 12:12, a handful of employees began gathering in the cramped break room, brown bags and microwave dinners in hand, faces already weary with the knowledge that this was less a break than a window of vulnerability. Angela joined them quietly, taking a seat by the far wall with a simple container of roasted vegetables she'd packed herself. Then, with the predictability of a thunderstorm in August, Harold Beck swept in. He carried no food, he never did, but his voice preceded him like a siren. "I hope someone ordered something good," he announced, grinning as though it were a joke, though no one laughed. He picked up a takeout menu from the counter, thumbed through it theatrically, and made a show of calling in an order large enough for a family of 5. Pad Thai, beef curry, 2 sets of spring rolls, extra sides, and a Thai iced tea with almond milk. When the order was confirmed, he slapped the receipt onto the communal table and turned to the nearest group with a crooked smile. "You folks can split it," he said. "Just keep the change from whatever you had planned." Then he winked, as if generosity had just passed through the room instead of theft. Angela saw it then. The glances, quick and nervous, shared between colleagues too tired to protest, too used to this theater of dominance to believe in rescue. No one said no. No one objected. They simply adjusted, as they always had, the same way people learn to walk with a limp after being stepped on too many times. Shortly after 2 p.m., Angela stepped into the hallway for a brief phone call from legal back at headquarters. The conversation was uneventful. A simple update regarding board schedule revisions. But when she returned just 10 minutes later, her desk felt off. Her chair was pulled away, her screen no longer in sleep mode, and her laptop, her personal laptop, not the temporary company-issued placeholder, was missing. She blinked once, slowly, then scanned the room with the precision of someone who had once lost a childhood home to flames and learned to track danger by instinct. Her gaze stopped when she spotted it. Her machine. Open, in use, sitting brazenly on Harold's desk as he typed with his sleeves rolled up and a paper coffee cup inches from the keyboard. She approached without pause, her voice calm but unmistakably firm. "That's my laptop." Harold barely looked up. "Yeah, mine died. Dead as a doornail. Had to get this proposal out fast. Yours was just sitting there." "You didn't ask." He shrugged, still typing. "Didn't think I needed to. We're on the same team, right?" Angela reached across and closed the screen, her tone colder now. "It's a personal device. It was not yours to take." Harold leaned back in his chair with a scoff, folding his arms. "You left it unattended. That's on you. Besides, what's the damage? You act like I stole your retirement fund." She opened the laptop to inspect it and immediately smelled it, that acrid sting of burnt coffee and circuitry. The lower left keyboard was soaked, the trackpad was sluggish. As she turned the machine slightly, a faint trail of liquid dripped onto her desk. "You spilled coffee on it." Harold gave a lazy nod, sipping from his cup. "Yeah, I bumped it. Stuff happens." "And you didn't think to tell me?" He gave a dry chuckle, then set the cup down with an audible thud. "Tell you?" "Tell you. Look, it's a busted old laptop. You're not going to cry about it, are you?" His eyes narrowed, voice dropping into that dangerous cadence people use when they believe themselves untouchable. "I get it. Y'all come in with something to prove, looking for injustice behind every corner, hoping to scream racism whenever someone so much as bumps into your chair. But here's the truth. This is the real world. No one's going to hand you respect just because you show up and look offended." Angela said nothing for a beat, her silence sharper than anything she could have spoken. Then, measured and unwavering, she said, "You will reimburse me." Harold laughed aloud now, standing to his full height, which wasn't nearly as imposing as he believed. "Reimburse you? You think I'm paying for your mistake? You brought your own junk and left it in a public space. I don't owe you a dime. In fact, I don't even know why you're here. You've been questioning things since you arrived. I've had it." He jabbed a finger toward the door. "You're done. Pack up. Now, and if I see you still here in 10 minutes, I'll have security walk you out." The room was silent. No one moved. No one dared intervene. Angela looked around. Not at Harold, but at the dozen faces frozen in place, paralyzed by years of fear and fatigue. Then, without raising her voice, without flinching, she said, "Very well." She gathered her things with deliberate care. Her bag, the damaged laptop, the uneaten lunch. Her hands never shook, her spine never bent. As she walked toward the exit, she paused just before crossing the threshold, turned her head slowly toward the man still standing with smug victory plastered across his face, and spoke, in a voice so clear it cut the air in two. "You've made a grave mistake." Then she left. And in the hours that followed, the office whispered and buzzed and trembled with the feeling that something had shifted. Something silent, enormous, and inevitable. The storm was coming, and it had a name. The following morning, as the light crept across the windows of Branch 7, the office breathed its usual tense rhythm. Monitors flickering to life, the hiss of stale coffee brewing, chairs squeaking under the weight of another day endured. Most employees sat quietly, eyes flicking toward the clock, fingers moving just enough to look busy, ears tuned for the inevitable sound of Harold Beck making his entrance, and he did, right on cue, striding through the bullpen with his usual air of inflated self-importance, slapping the back of a junior associate, commenting on someone's lunch as if he had paid for it, and announcing that he had a hell of a night as if anyone cared. He was still gloating from yesterday's performance, the temp he'd publicly humiliated and fired for daring to question him. There had been a particular smugness to his voice when he retold the story to anyone who'd listen, adding little flourishes each time. "She walked in like she was gonna fix the whole damn company," he'd chuckled. "Probably marching to HR right now with a box of tissues and a discrimination complaint, as if that's gonna help." At exactly 9:10 a.m., the double glass doors at the far end of the floor hissed open again. The room stirred. Conversations paused mid-word. Chairs turned halfway. It was her. Angela, the same woman from yesterday, only not the same at all. Gone was the modest navy blue suit and badge that labeled her a marketing support hire. Today she walked in wearing a charcoal gray tailored blazer with black lapels. The kind that didn't just suggest authority, it demanded. Her hair was down, framing her face in soft, dark waves that caught the light, and her expression, calm, unreadable, yet undeniably resolute, seemed to carry with it the weight of something final. But Harold, slow to catch context, spotted her from across the floor and barked out a laugh, as if the joke had been delivered straight to him. "You've got to be kidding me," he said, raising his voice loud enough to claim the attention he always needed. "I thought I told you to take that broken laptop and march your ass out of here. What now, you're back to cry in front of everyone? Gonna stage a little scene? His tone was laced with that same condescension that had stained every word he spoke to her the day before, but now it dripped with something more dangerous. Mockery in front of an audience. Angela didn't flinch. She didn't answer. She kept walking, her heels steady against the tile, eyes scanning the room not for Harold, but for someone else. He kept going, louder now, pointing at her with exaggerated disbelief. Let me guess, you talked to HR, you think some sob story's going to get me written up? He turned to the room, gesturing like a man telling a bar joke. I've been here 17 years, folks. I built this floor. I trained half of you. You really think I'm going to be scared by some intern with a bad attitude and a chip on her shoulder? Then, a voice cut through the air like a blade. That's enough, Mr. Beck. All heads turned to see a man rise from one of the corner offices. Tall, white, mid-40s, dressed in a crisp black suit and tie, with the quiet gravity of someone who didn't speak unless absolutely necessary. He held a slim folder in his hand, and when he spoke again, his tone was calm but carried the weight of finality. I'm Marcus Lane. I serve as general counsel for Ellis & Grace. Harold blinked, stunned for half a second, then tried to recover. Legal? What are you even doing? Marcus didn't give him the chance. I'm here to witness and confirm the executive transition of authority at this branch. As of this morning, Branch 7 falls directly under the oversight of a newly appointed acting executive officer. That officer is standing right in front of you. He turned toward Angela and gave a slight nod. Harold froze. Angela stepped forward, slowly, deliberately, and removed the small card clipped to the inside of her lapel. She held it up, letting the gold trim catch the light. Angela Monroe, Chief Executive Officer, Ellis & Grace. The silence that followed was not the silence of confusion. It was the silence of impact, of breath caught in collective throats, of realization crashing down like a thunderclap. Harold stumbled back a step, face pale, trying to laugh it off, voice cracking as he said, Wait a minute. This is some kind of joke, right? You set this up to embarrass me? Angela met his eyes, not with anger but with clarity. No, Mr. Beck, you did that all on your own. Marcus stepped beside her and opened the folder. Mr. Beck? Based on multiple documented incidents of employee intimidation, unauthorized use of company property, repeated misuse of managerial authority, and confirmed discriminatory remarks, your employment is hereby terminated, effective immediately. Your access to company systems and facilities is revoked. Security is waiting downstairs to collect your badge and escort you from the premises. Harold looked around the room, searching for someone, anyone, to back him up. But no one moved, no one made eye contact. The faces staring back at him were not cruel, not vengeful, but they were done being afraid. No, he stammered, you can't just walk in here and— I didn't just walk in here, Angela said, her voice as still as iron. I watched. I listened. I gave you a chance to do better. Instead, you insulted, degraded, and humiliated the very people who kept this place running while you coasted on title and fear. She took a single step closer, her voice dropping to a tone meant for him and him alone. You thought I was just another face in the crowd. You thought you could take what you wanted and laugh off the cost. You were wrong. Security appeared at the elevator bay. Harold's chest heaved as he turned, realizing there was no escape hatch this time. He muttered something under his breath, something bitter, something no one cared to hear, before finally walking out. Angela stood still as the doors closed behind him. Then, slowly, she turned back to the room and said simply, Let's begin again. And for the first time in years, Branch 7 exhaled. For a long moment after Harold Beck was escorted through those glass doors and vanished from view, no one in the office moved. It wasn't just the shock of what had transpired. It was the weight of having witnessed something most of them had stopped believing in. Accountability. The kind that wasn't whispered about behind closed doors or hinted at in sanitized HR emails, but delivered in broad daylight. Firm, unapologetic, and irreversible, Angela Monroe stood at the center of it all. not just as a CEO, but as a woman who had walked into the lion's den dressed as prey and revealed, when the moment demanded it, that she was in fact the hunter. And now that the predator had been dealt with, what remained was the broken silence, the lingering fear, and the question none of them had dared ask out loud. What now? Angela didn't waste time. She didn't bask in victory or pause for applause. Instead, she turned to Marcus Lane, her legal counsel, and gave a quiet nod. He understood. He stepped to the side, discreetly coordinating with her assistants, who immediately began distributing folders to each department lead. Inside were not memos, not warnings, but surveys, anonymous, direct, and unfiltered, asking for truth, real truth. Not the polished kind approved by middle managers, not the softened versions employees submitted out of fear. These were designed to expose systemic rot from the bottom up. Angela wasn't interested in fixing optics. She was here to fix the culture. Then, with quiet composure, she walked toward the middle of the floor and turned slowly, taking in every face. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was low but firm, like a sermon delivered not with fire but with steel. "I didn't come here to make a spectacle," she began. "I came here because this company, our company, has no business surviving if it cannot look its own sickness in the face. For too long, people like Harold have used their titles as shields, their years of service as permission, and your silence as proof that they were untouchable. That ends now." She let those words settle. Some employees looked away, ashamed of what they'd endured without protest. Others held her gaze, relief blooming behind guarded eyes. "I was sent reports," she continued, "but I didn't trust reports. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. I wanted to know what kind of workplace we'd allowed to grow here, and more importantly, what kind of leadership we tolerated. And let me be very clear, what I saw broke every principle I stand for. But more than that, what I saw was resilience. I saw people doing their best under the weight of cowardice, disguised as authority. I saw dignity, cornered but not extinguished." Someone sniffled in the back. A woman in the analytics department wiped the corner of her eye. Angela kept going. "This office will not go back to the way it was. It cannot. There will be new leadership, chosen carefully and with input from you. There will be training, yes, but more than that, there will be accountability. You will have safe channels to report violations, and those reports will not disappear into bureaucratic black holes. I will see them, myself, directly. And if anyone thinks they can rise to power on the backs of fear and silence, they will meet the same fate Harold did. Swift, public, permanent." A murmur spread through the room. Not unrest, not doubt. It was something softer, warmer. The cautious awakening of hope. Angela reached into her coat and retrieved a sealed envelope. "This is my direct line," she said, holding it up. "No middlemen, no filters. If someone here mistreats you, if the culture begins to slip again, if you feel unheard, you don't go to your supervisor, you go to me. Because I don't just want to fix what's broken. I want to build something that lasts, something that honors the work you do and the people you are." She paused, then added with just the faintest steel beneath the velvet, "I don't care how long someone's been here. If they forget that respect is not optional, they'll forget what it feels like to have a job." There were no cheers, no applause. Not yet. Just silence again, but this time it was reverent, almost stunned, like the first inhale after breaking the surface of water. Angela exhaled and let her shoulders fall just slightly. "Now," she said, turning toward her assistants, "we've got work to do." And in that moment, the entire floor seemed to shift, not with noise, not with drama, but with movement. People stood taller. Voices carried with less hesitation. A junior employee smiled for the first time in weeks. Two co-workers who hadn't dared speak above a whisper the day before began quietly discussing a project without flinching at approaching footsteps. For the first time in far too long, the office felt like something more than a place to survive. It felt like the beginning of something, right? Angela walked to the conference room without fanfare, already pulling up spreadsheets, already asking for performance numbers, not to punish, but to understand. She didn't need parades or plaques. Her presence had done what titles alone could not. It had made the powerful tremble, and the unheard finally believe they could speak. And from that day forward, one simple truth echoed through the halls of Branch 7, passed quietly from desk to desk like sacred scripture. She came back. She saw. She didn't just clean house. She gave it back to the people who actually built it. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.